Continuing with my NBA power rankings, we are going to talk about teams 15 through 11. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the 15th team I have ranked on my power rankings, the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, I have been bullish historically on the Grizzlies' talent, but this is sort of the first year where I do have obviously some questions. They did win 48 games last year after having what was a season from hell in the 2023-24 season. But of course, they were just outclassed in the first round by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Didn't help that Ja Morant got hurt in Game 3, which in part allowed OKC to have that big comeback. But the Grizzlies were sort of going through a transition as the season wound down. And unfortunately, there's already injuries to start the year. But part of me just looks at this and I still believe in a lot of the Grizzlies' young talent. I mean, Jalen Wells didn't play because he got hurt at the very end of the season. I'm looking forward to seeing what a second-year leap from him looks like. They traded away Desmond Bane, obviously, so I am a little bit concerned about the secondary creation because Bane was really turning himself into that type of player. But to me, KCP is a good stopgap starting two next to Ja Morant, who is now dealing with an ankle injury and is week to week. But you have KCP, you bring in Ty Jerome, who he's going to probably fall somewhere in the middle between what he was during the regular season last year and before that season happened, because he was really just shooting insanely well from the field. But that is a nice guard to have off the bench. And then you have Jalen Wells, the rookie Cedric Coward, and you all know the Grizzlies have a type. They like to go up and trade for that type, which is, something like a Jalen Wells with size and shooting. So I can't wait to see how he develops. But the Grizzlies still draft so well. And, with everybody relatively healthy, Scottie Pippen Jr. too, I forgot. He's been good in his last two seasons for the Grizzlies. We'll see what Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. look like to probably open up the season. They'll probably be back sometime, I imagine, in November. Maybe Ja Morant is there opening night. Who knows? Zach Edey looks like he's going to be out over 6 weeks. So obviously your three main guys being out, that is not ideal. But I still like a good chunk of this Grizzlies young talent. And when fully healthy, I think this team is going to be really good. Like last season, they were top 6 in offense and top 10 in defensive rating. And that's largely based on the personnel they have been accumulating over the last few seasons. It was probably time to break up the Desmond Bane, Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. core just based on how the money was working and stuff like that. But what I remember saying when Bane got traded was the Grizzlies draft so well that maybe you won't get a player that's as good as Desmond Bane. Maybe you do. Who knows? But they always have a chance at least to put themselves in position to replace players that they eventually have to trade away because of the second apron and stuff like that. And maybe in the back of my mind, I'm hoping for a slight Ja Morant bounce back in some ways. Hopefully having him attack the rim more, because that's been a declining thing that's been happening since the 2022-23 season. They still have talent across this roster, so I like this Grizzlies team. Now we go to 14, where this team probably, it depends on a few teams in my rankings here, but I feel like this team has the most upside here, depending on how the regular season goes for them. But the San Antonio Spurs are ranked 14th here. I am excited to watch this team. Victor Wembanyama's season was cut short last year because of a blood clot, and he seemed to be going on a tour of sorts over the summer, training with Monks, training with Kevin Garnett, training with Akeem Olajuwon. And, it just probably his demeanor and all that stuff in interviews, but it's clear Victor Wembanyama takes basketball very seriously. And that's one of the marks you need to have an all-time great career and be an all-time great player. And it seemed like he had one of those summers where a potential all-time great player is taking it seriously. He just looks bigger based on the media day stuff, and my God, some of the scrimmage clips that I was seeing the other day. This is where the Spurs should not be in the lottery. It will be a disappointment if the Spurs do not make the playoffs. They have a bunch of talent now. De'Aaron Fox is going to miss the start of the season with that hamstring injury, which is fine because they have Devin Vassell. They have Stephon Castle, who I'm looking forward to seeing, take a leap in year 2. Looking forward to seeing what Dylan Harper brings off the bench. They obviously fortified bringing in Kelly Olynyk. I like that pickup as a big that could play with Wembanyama, as a big that can also play center and back up Wembanyama. Luke Cornett, who is really good for Boston. Jeremy Sohan, I still don't know what he is, but I'm endlessly fascinated by him. And he is an awesome defender. I feel like, I made this take when Pop started playing him at point guard in Wemby's rookie year. But people were going to hate it then. But I feel like this is a type of season where Jeremy Sohan will really benefit from the playmaking because he has dynamic guards around him. Maybe he starts next to Wembanyama, maybe he doesn't. Harrison Barnes, steady vet. Carter Bryant immediately pops off the screen on the tape, especially in his summer league, where he's just everywhere defensively, and it's like, shit, this dude is going to be playing next to Victor. The Spurs roster, it just seems like there's endless possibilities because they have a player that can clearly change the league. If someone's an all-time great, usually it's by the second or third year where it's, okay, yeah, this team's here. And I feel like this could be the year for the Spurs, but I'm couching it a little bit maybe because in the back of my mind, I just hope Wemby stays healthy. I do wonder how the guard trio or quartet is going to sort itself out. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox will start. He got the big money and stuff. But it was really interesting that they gave him the extension and also took Harper, and they're bringing in Castle. Can't have too many guards. That's one of the things that, I potentially liked about the Sixers was having 4 dynamic guards that can at least do stuff. Yeah, they might overlap in some ways, but it's better than having no dynamic guards. There's just a lot of stuff here, and I'm interested to see how it gets put together. And, the Spurs putting it together, it's dependent on Victor Wembanyama putting it all together this season. And now we move on to team number 13, and this team is also, I have them ranked as the 6th best team in the Eastern Conference going into the season, the Detroit Pistons. And I do have some questions about there's questions about every team going into the season, right? But I am interested to see what type of offensive changes the Pistons go through. And what I mean by that is Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr.'s movement shooting was such a big help to get the engine going for the Pistons offense. You surround shooting around Cade Cunningham, and you put him in pick and rolls, you put him on the block, and he's able to just, because he's so good at passing, he can slice and dice, he can get it to the mid-range, he can pull up off the dribble now from 3, and having movement shooting around that type of offensive engine, helped the Pistons offense in a lot of ways. And they were tied for 15th in offensive rating. Their defense was, 11th, I believe, but it was getting better as the season went on. And I wholeheartedly believe that it would have been a different series. I still would have picked the Knicks to win, but not having Isaiah Stewart there really hurt the Pistons. But going into this season, I don't think there's going to be as much, knockdown shooting outside of Duncan Robinson. They definitely went more the creator route. They have Karis LeVert, Jaden Ivey supposed to be back after suffering a really unfortunate injury last year. Tobias Harris is not exactly going to put up the volume nor space the floor properly. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to this Piston offense, is the spacing is going to be a little bit different. I'm also interested to see what types of different lineups they can try to unlock. Will Asar Thompson and, Ron Holland play together? Because defensively, that is just a nasty perimeter duo to put on, any opposing offense. But obviously, offensively, it gets really dicey, right? You have good bigs, and I believe in Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart. But that's the first thing that comes to mind is where's this shooting going to come from? and what different routes can they take to go about their offense. And that's going to be something JB Bickerstaff has to figure out. But this team has a bona fide number one offensive engine in Cade Cunningham that's only getting better. The Pistons are revived now. They had a nice series with the Knicks, and now they're looking forward to taking that next step. And I'm looking forward to seeing some point Ausar Thompson, because I think he has – it's a lot of Iguodala-ish qualities to Ausar Thompson, especially defensively, but with the playmaking as well. Isaiah Stewart's a motherfucker. He's an awesome defender positionally, and he doesn't take any shit. Jalen Duren, love his passing as a big already. Can he keep taking those next steps on the defensive end and keep getting better at that? But they have some ball handling, they have some shot creation, and they have a bona fide number one. We all know what the pecking order is. I'm looking for the Pistons to take that next step forward. Now we move to number 12. And this is a team that I bought stock in early on before last season. Said that this team would be better than the Miami Heat, finish with a better record than the Miami Heat. And I had to block a few YouTube accounts that were getting really disrespectful, like, you know, the disrespectful name calling and stuff. I had to block them because they were Miami Heat fans that were incredulous that I put this team above them. Turns out I was right, and I'm going to double down on that stock. And I am talking about the Atlanta Hawks. Not only did they have arguably a top 2 offseason, you could debate between them and the Rockets. There were a few others in there, but I feel like the Hawks had the most interesting and also the most effective offseason when it comes to building around your franchise guy for now. You know, I know there are still extension talks to be had with Trae Young, but Trae Young is your guy. You took the steps last year that I really liked, which is why I bought stock on that team early, putting 6'6" to 6'10" wings, long bigs around Trae Young, insulate him defensively. Jalen Johnson unfortunately got hurt, but he was well on his way to becoming an all-star. And I hope he stays healthy this year because I still think Jalen Johnson is an ascending star in the making. But you bring in Kristaps Porzingis, you bring in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is one of the more valuable and seamless, legit 3-and-D guys in the league that you can have in your rotation that could also create a little bit. Zachary Richeche had a very strong finish to his rookie season. You bring in Luke Kennard for some sniper-type shooting. Dyson Daniels, hopefully you can work out an extension with him soon. But Dyson Daniels became the starter after being buried a little bit in New Orleans. And in those minutes in New Orleans, I even said then, Dyson Daniels, when he had minutes, really played like an all-NBA caliber level defender. And then last year leads the league in steals. Could have been Defensive Player of the Year after Victor Wembanyama went out. But is an absolute menace. You bring in Asa Newell, who kind of has the same measurements that the Hawks are looking for, seemingly. Vet Krejci, very good in backup minutes. Also sneaky 6'8". I just like this Hawks team a lot, man. Obviously, health is a big factor, especially with Kristaps Porzingis, because he's kind of the guy that can really tear the ceiling off of an offense if you're trying to build one, just because of his ability to be 7'3" and just shoot from 35 feet. That's going to help out Trae Young in a lot of double drag stuff. There's going to be a lot of creative stuff, I feel like, to utilize Trae Young's passing. Trae Young, hopefully, will continue the trend of playing off-ball more. I really like this Hawks team because it fits around their best player. They have insulated their best player as much as they can. And not only did they insulate Trae Young with players of a certain physical build that they're clearly looking for, those players also are no slouches offensively. Like, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Richeche looks like offensively in his second year. Kristaps Porzingis, you can have him shoot. You can also have him, he's gotten better at posting up on a switch because he can easily shoot over a guy. And then Jalen Johnson. If Jalen Johnson stays healthy, I'm telling you, this guy is going to take off. But when this Hawks team is completely healthy, they can do versatile lineups. Hell, they could take Trae Young off the court and give him a breather and go with an all big-ass wing lineup with Jalen Johnson as a possible point guard. There's options that the Hawks have now. And this is it for the Hawks. For the Trae Young truthers out there, and I do lean a little bit more towards that side, probably somewhere close to the middle, a little bit leaning towards, fan of Trae Young, think he's a good offensive engine, etc. This is the team, man. Get to the conference finals. I see no reason why the Hawks can't do that. And if they fail spectacularly, their offseason gets very interesting very fast. And then number 11, we have the Golden State Warriors. Everybody knows I am very bullish on always, especially when you have Steph Curry. But the big three is older now, and by the big three, I mean Curry, Butler, and Draymond Green. So there is the chance for injuries or something to happen like what happened to Steph in the Timberwolves series in the second round, where I wholeheartedly believe the Warriors would have won that series if Steph was healthy. But when the Warriors traded for Jimmy Butler last year, it transformed the Warriors in a number of ways, addressed what were usually long-standing problems with the Warriors, like when Steph Curry goes off the court, the Warriors understandably are a completely different team. Jimmy Butler on the court with Stephen Curry and Draymond Green off the court, the Warriors were a +9 in terms of net rating, a 117 offensive rating, which is really good, and more importantly, a 108 defensive rating. After the Jimmy Butler trade, the Warriors were 6th in offense and 1st in defense. So when Butler got traded on February 8th, I believe, or when he made his Warrior debut on February 8th, the Warriors were number 1 in defense. And with Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond on the court, the Warriors had a blistering 121.9 offensive rating with a 113 defensive rating. And their most used lineup with that trio, the Steph Curry, Brandon Pajemski, Moses Moody, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green at center lineup, a 120.9 offensive rating and a 103.1 defensive rating. This team was really good after they acquired Jimmy Butler. The problem is, now, with the addition of Al Horford to the starting lineup, after all the signings were made official, after the Jonathan Kuminga saga mercifully ended, that starting lineup's going to be pretty old. But they're still really good. I can already see how Al Horford is going to fit into this Warriors system with the passing, with the switchability still even at his age, although teams are attacking Al Horford more and more in the pick and roll and on switches. But I just have a feeling that him and Draymond, they're just going to have such a high IQ base level on that end of the floor, along with Jimmy Butler, along with Moses Moody and Brandon Pajemski to provide some athleticism. You bring back DeAnthony Melton, who hopefully he's recovered from his ACL injury, because I think he is a very good and useful player when he's healthy. Just somebody who is athletic, can guard the point of attack, and can shoot threes, and in a pinch can scale up to small forward, because that's what he was kind of used when he was completely healthy in Philadelphia. He did have to scale up some because of his athleticism. But Gary Payton II, Gui Santos is even useful in spot minutes. Trace Jackson Davis and Quentin Post can provide some different looks with the backup center. But I'm looking at this Warriors team, and with Jonathan Kuminga back in the fold, I imagine he's going to be gone after this season because that 2-year deal has a player option. But this type of Warriors team is the exact type of team that needs Jonathan Kuminga's rim pressure. This team has a lot of potential to move up these rankings, man. It's all about health with this team, because I think any team with Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler is a contender. But they are a little slight on the wing position. And outside of Al Horford, Quentin Post and Trace Jackson Davis are going to have to, show a little bit more. Quentin Post definitely provided some surprise pick and pop shooting last year, but you saw in that Houston series, he just got decimated defensively. Definitely slow-footed for as much as he tries and plays his ass off. I will give him credit there. But I like the makeup of this Warriors team. Good coaching, still an elite player even in the twilight of his career. Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. When you compare it to other teams, you could do a lot worse.